Okay, so you're looking to establish an engagement routine. For me, the best place to start here is by looking at a wider view. Take the medium-term planning sheet there that I've got here. What I'm looking to do is establish three things for each of my teaching groups. I want to know when I'm going to set the homework. I want to know when I'm going to take the books in, and I want to know when I'm going to engage with the students. And the best place to start is here. And we can see here we've got two groups. We've got a Year 13 business group and a Year 13 economic groups. You can see the date ranges on the left, and each group has not just this column, so 133 business goes all the way down to half term here, and it continues down here. Obviously that means that the entirety of this side is the economics group. Now at this point I can quickly see that I've got a lot of exams being built up here, a lot of resits and actually modular exams for these two groups here. So I want to remain flexible in terms of the homework that I set around this point. Therefore I've not actually scheduled it in on this medium term. But immediately after that I have tried to go back to my routine, and we can see I've got a homework set there and another homework set here for 133 business. I then go through the half term, and we can see side by side two groups here. Notice how I'm going to take 133 businesses books in here in the week commencing the 25th of Feb, but looking across to 134 economics, I'm actually going to set them another homework there. This is one of the biggest things that happens. If I was to take the books in there as well, I would end up taking an unfeasible amount of books in the same week, over marking. I'd do a rush job and it wouldn't be sustainable. I'd get annoyed with my marking at the end of the day. So I've decided there quite clearly I can see when the best time is to take books in and when to take homework in. Likewise with 134 economics, I'm going to set homework and then the following week take those books in, and I'll engage with them after that. What this overview allows you to also do, it allows you to check that you are seamlessly fitting in with the school and the department policy for your marking and feedback. It also allows you to see whether your scheme of work fits in neatly into the amount of feedback that you're prescribing here. And you can also at a glance show any colleagues that you might be sharing one of these groups with. So I share both of these groups, and I would be able to show my partner exactly when I'm setting homework, so they can either avoid that or do something a little bit different. Another tip you might want to be aware of is if you look at your timetable, you want to identify when you are seeing certain classes and try and look for the most concentrated times. So I'm identifying now my 134 economics periods because I see them 9 times a fortnight, and that's obviously going to mean that it doesn't give me a lot of time in between taking the books in and actually engaging with the homework the very next lesson. So I'm looking for a period where there's a lot of time between taking the books in and engaging, and I can see here that Tuesday period 1, if I was to take the books in there indicated by B, I would have a PPA there, a free period there and another free period there prior to the next time I see them, which is period 2 on the Thursday. That would then become my ideal engagement period. Going from there, I can then see how all of that impacts upon the daily planner, and I just need to flick down a couple of pages here. Tuesday the 26th of March there, a bit of a random page, but there's loads going on in it. I do this all the time for all my groups. I've got homework going out here for 134 economics, and I've given the date that it's due back in. What I would then do at that point is find the lesson planning page for the 15th of April and write in books in, and that would remind me to take them in. In fact, I've got a different group here, year 10. I've actually put their books in, so clearly I'd set a homework maybe a week ago, and this would be their due date, Tuesday the 26th of March. So I've identified two things at this point. I've identified when I'm going to be setting the homework and when it's due in, when I'm actually going to take the books in, so the due date as it were, and then I want to know when am I going to engage. Now to set this routine up, I'm going to follow this year 10 group, seeing as they've taken the books in. It should be by the next lesson I'm trying to engage with them. I've got Wednesday the 27th of March and I haven't got them, and then it's Thursday the 28th of March and there they are, the year 10 group, and I've written down there engage. So quite neatly then, with each group, with every homework, I identify those three things: when I'm setting the homework, when it's due back in, and when I'm going to engage with it. And that routine will help you successfully incorporate this cycle of effective marking and feedback. Okay, so here's a neat little trick for those who want to keep homework in an exercise book and not on A4 sheets or in a dedicated booklet, but also want to make their engagement process a little more seamless. The idea here is that you've got your homework and it's all given to the students on a slide, and as we can see, here's an A4 sheet with two identical slides on it. The student cuts the slide out, they stick it in their book, and that is there. It's nice and permanent. It's nice to have the date on there. There's nothing lost in translation. You've got everything you wanted to say. All your questions are nice and clear there. It's also very easily signposted, so if you're flicking back through a student's book, this stands out an absolute mile, so you can see there's clearly homework being given on a regular basis, but just through spotting slides. And also you've got things like success criteria here, and also previous areas for development. But as this is an engagement video, I want to draw your attention down to point 5 here. It's quite a neat thing to do. After the students have answered the questions 1 to 4 in this case, they would then be encouraged to leave a nice blank space for their for the teacher to offer their feedback, and then for them to go back and actually work on it and make some progress with the homework after reading the feedback itself. What this means is that those students who get the homework and do it straight away, and then perhaps have 2 further classes prior to the actual due date, it means that they are no longer trying to engage with the homework maybe 4 or 5 pages after the homework was done. Here, no matter how much classwork has passed in between them doing the homework and between when you actually engage with it, they can just flick back to the homework, access this half a page of space that they've cleverly left themselves, and keep it nice and tight and together. And it just makes the engagement process that bit more seamless.
Okay, last year I did some work with trying to get students to respond to my feedback, and I tended to use EBI and phrased it very much around "you need to." What I tended to get back when I did that was from students comments like "I will in future" or "I am going to," and reflection on that, if you like, rather than actually doing anything with it. And so I realised that I needed to plan a little better what it was that I was doing with that feedback so that it led to action. So the first thing that I did was I changed EBI to ATI, so from instead of even better if to action to improve, and try to identify specific things that they could do there and then, or as an additional homework with that piece of work to move it on in terms of the quality of what they did, either against agreed success criteria or against national curriculum levels or GCSE and A-level mark schemes. Threw up 3 challenges. The first one was about actually spending some real time adjusting to writing meaningful actions. And that's actually quite hard to go from "you need to include more detail in your written work" to identifying a point in their answer in which you say, "Here you need to give detail outlining the causes of this or explaining this." And so that adjustment took me some time and was one initial challenge. The second was actually phrasing my feedback very much around doing things as opposed to simply reflecting and back to the student. So this is good, or that, a good explanation here, to explanation like this needs to be matched in this paragraph here where I have starred, so that they can actually take WW and use it for the action to improve. So phrasing my feedback was another challenge. And the last challenge was actually in marking. It took time to get used to it, but what action to improve required was me to do a follow-up set of marking to check that their action to improve had the improvement that it was intending to have. So it was food for thought, but the quality in terms of their engagement with their feedback was marked and markedly different over the period of time in which I'd carried out that explanation.
Okay. So one way of getting students involved in peer assessment and engaged as part of the engagement process would be that you would give the students a piece of work. You might mark it and give them targets to improve. Then the students have to work on those targets. Then they would show their peer and explain to them how they've made the improvements and essentially justify the fact that they've met those targets. The peer might then assess them either by ticking it off or by using the red, amber, green pages in a planner. Another way of getting the peers involved might be through when you mark the work. What I've done before is I've given comments for what they need to do to improve, and I might have used the level criteria, but I haven't given them targets. So they've then given the essay to the partner, to their peer, who's then set out the 3 targets, and they've explained then using the feedback what those 3 targets are to their peer, and vice versa. Another way, which is kind of flipping on its head slightly, is that actually the peers start the feedback process. So they would read through the work, they'd assess it, maybe provide the what went well and even better if, and then that provides the basis for my comments then afterwards. So it gets both peer and teacher assessment, but it builds on it in a slightly different way.